Our last guest is the one who's travelled the furthest to get here. And he specifically asked to be on at the end after everyone's nice and drunk. And I'm sure the reason for that will become clear. He's given me, and I have to read this. I know I haven't done this all night, but I have to read it because I want to make sure that I get the words right. By way of introduction, our final guest for this evening said that he's a reader in signal processing at Leeds University. He does not think that jokes about singular value decomposition or weighted least squares will be terribly funny. I don't think we agree with that, do we? So tonight he'll concentrate on his twin passions, photographing and cataloguing speed bumps. Yes, it's all a bit geeky, but he's slowly trying to get over them. Would you please welcome to the stage, Des McLerman.
Yeah, there's nothing funny about singular value decomposition. If you go to Google Scholar, you'll find 300 boring papers, 310 actually, that I've written on singular value decomposition. But it's nothing funny about it at all. You've been a great audience. It's wonderful to be here. Can I just say, it's just a wild shot. Anybody here from York University? Yeah, great. Interesting statistic I heard this morning. Apparently 7 out of 4 students at York University can't use fractions properly. Luckily at Leeds University it's 8 out of 5, so we're a lot better than you. Now when I came up here tonight, I parked in a multi-storey car park just across the road, and when I got out of the multi-storey car park, just coming down, there was a sign up and it said, "Please do not urinate in the stairwells." That's just a posh way of saying don't piss in the stairs. And the idea of pissing in the stairs of a multi-storey car park, that's wrong on so many levels, seriously. Yeah, don't you, man, come on, I'm going to nick other people's jokes. And as I was walking up here, I never realised, Chris, how many famous scientists, they're not actually Australian, how many famous scientists there are in York. There was a blue plaque for, Michael Faraday lived here, and there was one for Albert Einstein lived here, and there was one for Louis Pasteur lived here. And there was even one for Werner Heisenberg, the famous quantum physicist who gave us the uncertainty principle. Blue plaque, and it said, Werner Heisenberg probably lived here. Well, when I came up here, I was so nervous, and I said to Chris, I'm really nervous about this. Any chance I could do it via Skype from Leeds University? And he said, no. He said, somebody might want to throw something at you. I don't think anybody's going to throw anything at me tonight. Oi, leave it out. How did my brother get a ticket here? I told him not to come. So I was very, very nervous. And when I came here, Chris said to me, he said, listen, this is an intelligent audience. And we don't want any... Well, it was an intelligent audience. He said, we don't want any jokes from Bob Monkhouse, for those of you old enough to remember. I said, I'm not going to tell jokes about, Bob Monkhouse jokes. You're sophisticated people, and all my friends and family have come over from Ireland to hear me perform tonight. I'm not going to insult them with Bob Monkhouse jokes. No way am I going to do that. In fact, last week when I was out for a dinner with them in York, and I told them I was going to do stand-up comedy, they all laughed. Well, they're not laughing now. No, there's no way I'm going to use a Bob Monkhouse joke. That would just insult your intelligence. So I suppose you're wondering how I got this gig. Well, the way I got it was that Chris rang up and he said, Des, we're doing a cabaret night, and we're looking for a big star, comedy star, and he has to be good looking, he has to be intelligent, he has to have a good science background, he has to tell a good joke, but most importantly, he said, he has to be Irish. And he says, do you think you can help? And I said, yeah, certainly, Chris, you only had to ask. He said, good, could you ring Dara O'Brien and see if he's free? Well, I rang Dara. Dara said he couldn't make it, he's washing his hair tonight. I don't really trust him. But when I heard I got the gig, I decided I've got to lose a bit of weight, got to look my best, and so I went on a mega new age diet. And I ate nothing for a whole year. I just inhaled air. And I went and weighed myself on the scales just last week, and the scale said 0 milligrams. Wow, I was so happy. I tweeted, OMG to all my friends. Come on. They're going to be slow here tonight, okay. They have been drinking. As part of this new age diet, I also was frozen down to absolute 0. Now, it sounds dangerous, but I was okay. Okay. I hope you're getting this. Good. So the thing was that it's difficult, men to talk about their weight, and they also don't talk about being in therapy and things like that. I've been in therapy all my life, and I'm not ashamed of it. And lots of famous people have been in therapy, like Woody Allen. Woody Allen, the very famous New York film director, he's been in therapy all his life. He's made a livelihood out of talking about therapy. Hasn't done him any harm, has it? Apart from marrying his daughter. But that's sort of normal in parts of Yorkshire, isn't it still, I think? And by the way, that was not a joke. He did actually marry his stepdaughter. And this is not a joke either. His son, when asked why he doesn't talk to his father anymore, he said, when my sister became my mother, it all got a bit weird. That was the understatement of the year. But I first went to therapy when I was 5 years of age. My father took me in Belfast. I went to see a German therapist. I was very, very anxious. The therapist was totally dismissive. She said I was just young and frightened. And I also, the best advice my therapist ever gave me was live every day like it's your last. I tried that a few months ago. I don't remember much. I woke up with a massive hangover, a maxed out credit card, and a restraining order to keep away from Kirsty Young. Or maybe it was Kirsty Walker. Maybe it was just anybody on Newsnight. I can't remember. But you've all been there. Come on, don't look at me like that. So I was so nervous that I stayed up all night. I couldn't sleep last night at all, thinking about this gig. And I was reading a great book by Brian Cox, who's been mentioned many times here. It's a new book. It's called Anti-Gravity. It was so good I couldn't put it down. They're going to get worse, don't worry. But Brian Cox is a good friend of mine, actually, and he's having a birthday party next week. He's going to be 16. Yeah, I know you're all laughing. I didn't realize he was as old as that either myself, The birthday party is going to be in the International Space Station. I'm not sure if I'll go. I don't think there'll be any real atmosphere. So when I woke up this morning, I hadn't slept all night. I've been reading this book by Brian Cox. I was very nervous, and I came in here early this morning, about 11 o'clock, for a quick beer buzz, and some breakfast just to settle my nerves. And when I came in downstairs, I was with a friend of mine. He's a helium molecule, and he's here tonight, but I don't know, I've lost him somewhere. But we both came in, and I ordered 2 beers at 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 pints of Guinness. He might be a helium molecule, but he's a big drinker. And the barmaid looked at him, and she went, "Get out," she said. "We don't serve noble gases in this bar." And luckily my friend didn't react. And I looked around the bar to see who was there. There was nobody there at all, except one guy with a long grey beard. And he was drinking an espresso. I couldn't believe it. It was the famous Russian physiologist, Ivan Pavlov, sitting in the bar downstairs. Ivan Pavlov. Amazing, just drinking a little espresso. And then somebody in the kitchen rang a bell, and he jumped up and said, "Shit, I forgot to feed the dog." I looked around, and in walked Hydrogen Atom. And I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yeah, I've lost an electron." I said, "Are you sure?" He said, "I'm positive." And then I've got to mention the Higgs boson. I don't know what your favorite elementary particle. Mine used to be the quark, but now it's the Higgs boson. In walked a little Higgs boson to the bar downstairs. Now, it wasn't an ordinary Higgs boson. It was a little Ulster Loyalist Protestant, DUP Higgs boson. He was pretty flush because he got a lot of money from the magic money tree from Theresa May. And £1 billion, in fact. That's the only politics I'm going to get into this. And he came and he sat at a table beside a Catholic priest. And the Catholic priest obviously asked the little Ulster Loyalist Protestant Higgs boson if he could move to another table. And the little Ulster Loyalist Protestant Higgs boson said, "Sure, I will." And he stood up and said, "But if I go, Father, you'll have no mass." And then in walked Albert Einstein. I thought he was dead. I couldn't believe it. And he was carrying a lucky horseshoe. Can you believe it? I went up to him and I said, "Professor Einstein, you're one of the most famous physicists in the world. You can't believe in this stupid, superstitious nonsense." And he said, "Des, of course I don't believe in this stupid, superstitious nonsense, but you don't have to believe in it for it to work," which is very important. So by this stage, I was getting fed up with all the terrible puns, and I decided to go for a walk down the road here. And as I walked down the road, I love this part of York here. York's a brilliant place. It's so quirky, and it's like a little village atmosphere, isn't it, really? You got a fishmonger, a cheesemonger, you got a sort of, a fishmonger, cheesemonger, a bread maker, everything you've got here. In fact, an origami shop opened up last week, but it only lasted 2 days and it folded. And so as I was walking down, I saw, by the way, any physicists here? Any physicists from York University? Great, you're not going to like this joke. There was There was. I walked out, and there were four men talking on the road. Three. I've just lost one of them. And one was a doctor, and one was a lawyer, and one was a physicist. And they were discussing the merits of. They were all men, by the way, discussing the merits of a wife or a mistress. And the doctor said, well, as one of the top neurosurgeons in the whole of the UK, I have lots of very attractive young doctors, female doctors and female nurses who, of course, admire me. And one thing can lead to another, and, well, I'd probably go with the mistress. And the lawyer said, well, that's totally morally, I couldn't possibly do that. And also, I would never cheat on my wife, because if I ever did, my wife would get the best lawyer from London, who's all very jealous of my success, and I'd be sued for everything. I'd be left in nothing but my socks and my Speedos, And he said, I don't want to do that. And then they turned to the experimental physicist, and said, what about you? And the experimental physicist said, well, I go for both. They said, that's really interesting. How do you manage that? He said, well, of a night, I tell my wife I was going to see my mistress. I tell my mistress I was going to see my wife. Then I go to the university lab and get some real work done. Now, I expect you're glad, but I'm going to have to finish very soon. There's 4 things I want to tell you before I go. First one is, last night I was talking to my daughter, and I was trying to explain to her that in the English language, just like in Boolean algebra, 2 NOT gates give you a positive, give you a 1, And in English language, 2 negatives, one after the other, give you a positive. And she went, yeah. And I said, but 2 positives, one after the other, can never give you a negative. And she went, yeah, right. You got to think about it. Second one, what do atheist dyslectics hang on their garden gate? A sign saying, beware of the god. Next one. What happens if you mix a rhetorical question with a joke? And finally, never, never, never trust an atom. Honestly, they make up everything. Thank you. You've been a terrible audience. I've been Darrell O'Brien.
The bravest comedian in science comedy. Des McLerman, thank you for joining us. Oh dear. Well, listen.